All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bullets, Barbells, and Barbecue podcast. We have some special guests on today. We have a couple of doctors of psychology. We have Dr. Drew Heckman and Dr. Wes Sheely. I'll let these guys kind of introduce themselves and give you some credentials. We'll start with Drew.
Okay. So my name is Drew Heckman. I got my PhD from Indiana University in 2009.
I like the confidence. It's good. We're already off to a great start.
We're looking good here. Yeah, don't ask me dates. 2000. Got my PhD from there. I did my pre-doctoral internship with Boys Town. Did a 2-year postdoc with Johns Hopkins, and I've been practicing as a clinical psychologist for 11-ish years now.
Had a mediocre powerlifting career.
And it was above average powerlifter. So.
Like a B over a C.
Yeah.
Almost an A, though.
I'd say it in like an okay squat and decent deadlift. And a very charity bench.
Yeah, that's all right, though.
Right, yeah. So, and I've trained in powerlifting for, I think, 8 years now. So just had minor success in powerlifting. And then now I do more coaching because my knees can't handle it.
And I measure everyone's success in powerlifting only.
Of course.
Obviously.
Of course, yeah. Makes
So
sense,
I guess it's Wes's turn.
Yeah.
I'm Wes Sheely, and I got my PhD in 2010 from the University of Cincinnati. Drew and I met on internship, both at Boys Town. I went and did a postdoctoral fellowship at Boys Town, postdoctoral fellowship at Johns Hopkins. Been in the field now for 11 years. Just started my own practice, Perspective Behavioral Health, and the two of us do a podcast called Do More Better. So if you're interested in more psychology stuff, a lot of that stuff comes...
It's coming back.
Yeah.
It's been on a little hiatus since Drew
Yeah,
moved.
this guy moved, and that put a real
piece of shit, but
And season 2 is where we're really going to get into
Season
this
2.
stuff.
You're going full audio season 2, right? No video, just full audio?
We don't know yet.
decided
We had an...
I don't know if people really want to look at you, though, so maybe audio.
I mean, yeah.
I'm hurting right now.
We've got a face for radio, for sure.
Yeah, me too. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I know my strengths.
My mom says I look good.
And, that's all that
She
matters.
says I look good, too.
And that's where it's even better. We did a podcast about mentality and, training, weight loss, life. And I've always said I think you can tell a lot about a person on their consistencies and what they do in the gym.
I didn't even get to say, I did do one powerlifting meet.
Oh,
and
that is true.
I did win my weight category. So I don't do any more meets because, diminishing returns.
You can't get better than first.
Can't get better than first place.
Yeah.
You start getting averages, and then it really goes to shit after that.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, we talk about, and I think you can learn a lot about somebody, their habits and what they do in and out of the gym. Their consistencies. And, here we have a mix of everybody. We have a very motley crew, but we have a lot of blue collar, hardworking people that come in here. And we have some PhDers, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, and I've been training clients for, I don't know, almost like 20 years I've been doing this. And I think the psychology is a huge part of it in people's mind game. I've seen lifters who I know are stronger than they'll ever believe they are because their mentality and their psyche on it.
Right. I would say, too, also the number of people you see come in here that have either not just here, but in powerlifting in general, a history of substance use or a history of mental health stuff, and this is their therapy. Walking in here and training and doing work, and the literature is actually pretty clear on this, too, is that exercise is one of the best mental health you can find. And so I'll at some point I'll quit being surprised by it, that you're in recovery, because this is therapy.
It's kind of that idea, and what you guys think, like one addiction for another. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that, addiction, people call it a disease. I don't know, like the full, but do you think you can ever not be an addict, or is it always just one for another?
So I have a weird take on this, I would say, and this is probably why we're doing this podcast, is we're all addicts. But the thing we're addicted to, we're not very clear on what that is. And what it is, we're all addicted to avoiding our own mind. And so if you sit and you don't have much to do, the only thing that you have company with is your mind. And none of us want to be with our mind for very long. And so that's why we're all on our phones. That's why we're, looking on YouTube, watching podcasts about shitting your pants,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that in some level, we all have to find some way to not be with our own mind for too long. And it just, that way that we find, sometimes it adds to your life and sometimes it takes away from your life. Drugs are a really easy way to do it, and they take from your life.
And alcohol. You talk drugs
alcohol,
and alcohol.
Alcohol is an easy way to do it because it makes you not think. And so if we find a way it's another addiction. It's another way to avoid your mind. But when you're done with it, you have something now. It added to your life. That's what powerlifting does. That's what running marathons does. That's what sprinting does. That's what any sort of competition where when you've done that thing to avoid your mind, you leave with your life is now better as opposed to you just avoided your mind. So I
And
think
now by
it is-
better, you mean better in their head to them, like doing a weekend banger of drugs.
Right. It didn't add anything to your life. You're not proud of that. You know, you're not going to go tell your.
But it kept you out of your own mind.
It kept you out of your own mind.
Have you seen that? Where's that at? There's like that place they have that room. It's like the quietest room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where you can't be like the longest person lasted like so many minutes. And
Sensory
they go,
deprivation. Yeah.
And they go crazy in that
It
room.
used to
'cause
be
it's so-
torture, and now we're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, to see how long. It's like a fucking
floating
game.
spas too,
Yeah,
you know, where you're like
yeah.
in the tanks and whatnot.
But yeah, it's like wherever that room's at, yeah, and like the longest person lasted like how many ever minutes. Otherwise, most people go crazy. And it's like you said, because
Yeah.
you're just stuck in your mind, and
stuck.
all you can hear is your body.
Yeah, because I mean, like we have us and we have our mind, and even when you're not doing something, your mind is doing something in the background. And if you don't have anything to distract yourself with, you have to focus on your mind, and it tends to get pretty dark. And so, you know, finding a way to distract yourself that actually adds something to your life is the hard part we're all doing. So yeah, it's replacement, but it's a good replacement.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the most common coping strategies for anxiety is just distraction. I mean, you can have somebody come in your office and you can say, just start counting my blinds, and they will tell you that their anxiety is going down. I know you remember this, but you know, 15 years ago they came out with adult coloring books,
Yeah.
and right.
And fidget spinners and all that other
All
shit.
that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
fidget spinners! Don't get us started on fidget spinners.
And so, you know, I look at that and I think if you pulled me as a 41-year-old man into your office and you said, well, you got some anxiety, let's color. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that when we're done? Am I supposed to put that on the fridge? What does that mean for me? And when Drew says, you know, it's supposed to contribute to your life, I think there's a big difference between me coloring versus me deadlifting. And for me, I identify with, well, I'm getting stronger, I'm progressing, and I would ask both of you, what are you thinking about when you're deadlifting?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing. And so it's a skill to learn how to stop your mind. It's a skill to learn.
And I think like with you're saying the coloring, like once you're done, like whatever, but a deadlift, you know, that's where the addiction comes in because you're like, wait until next week so I can
Next
lift more.
one. Right.
It's not like, man, I can't wait to color another fucking picture that no one cares about.
Right.
And I mean, I think the mind over matter thing is huge. Like I'm a huge person, like with clients, like whatever you want to call it, like the power of positive thinking. Like as soon as you go into something, especially in lifting, and think you can't do it, you've already lost like 90% of the battle to me.
Yeah. I would add to that. So I actually did my dissertation on a thing called video self-modeling. It actually is
Killer intervention.
Yeah. So there's an intervention. It first started out in kids with autism. And so kids with autism struggle with social interaction. So what they would do is they would videotape these kids, and they would edit the crap out of these videotapes and find really good social skills, and then they would show the kids them doing it well. And who would have thought the kids start doing better? And so the mind over matter thing is sometimes it's really difficult to talk yourself into like, okay, I can do this. But if you video it, and a lot of times with my lifters, what I like to do is right before they go out for their attempt, I find a really good squat that I have a video of, and I have them watch it, you know, and I say, I want you to watch this, you know. So I don't even tell them, you got this, you know. I have them see it, and they see themselves do it. They see what it looks like when it's done really well. And so they become their own model. You know, we all had our models we look up to, and you know, Ed Cohen. I looked up to Ed Cohen squat, and I looked at Chuck Vogelpool, the way he squatted, you know. But I didn't look exactly like that. But I did look like me. And if I watch a video of myself doing it and doing it really well, then I start to believe I can do it, you know. And it's in a weird way, you're tricking yourself into doing it. And so video self-modeling, actually, you know, it came out of this research with kids with autism, but like college.
Like the mutism kids too.
Yeah,
Kids
but-
that couldn't talk in
but
like certain situations.
College football coaches were using it for years.
Yeah.
You know, they were showing
Alabama
highlight
football.
films. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how when Michigan had gotten beat for years and years by Ohio State, what they did, a psychologist came in and made a highlight film of like 10 years of Ohio State losing to Michigan, but they found all the good plays where Michigan won, and they showed it to the team before the game, and they came out and kicked their ass that game, you know. And so I think you're right. It's like thinking you can do it, but actually showing them do it too. So that's why, like, I'm probably you did the episode on pet peeves in the gym. I'm as annoyed by cameras in the gym as everybody else, but when it's done for a purpose, you know, to
But do you think that all those Instagram kids are doing it for that purpose?
No, they're
Or do you think
not.
they're going for the other end of it where people live now off instant gratification?
Yes, I think that's more what it is.
As soon as they post it, if they don't have 10 likes, you
Right.
know, or when the time before, you know, it's like almost like mentally disturbing to them.
Yeah, no, it really messes them up. But I think for if there are any coaches listening to this, and you have good videos of your lifters doing the lift that they're about to do, and you show them that little clip right before they go, they'll start to believe it. And like you said, if you believe you can do it, you might be able to. If you
Well,
believe
and
you can,
a lot of
you
these
sure
coaches
can.
out there, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been around like a lot of really good people. I've been lucky enough, like I said, to spend some time with Louis Simmons and spend a lot of time with Ed. Like, you don't need to video every single fucking set. No one cares. And if you're a coach and you're asking for every set, you're a piece of shit asshole too, because you don't need, wait till they get, if you're not at 80% or above, your technique shouldn't
No,
break.
it
If
won't
it
break.
breaks before, you're a trash lifter.
Yes.
So, Brett, you mentioned like positive psychology and that kind of stuff. I mean, there are research studies where people are going into interviews and they have them sit in certain postures. And if you're in like a commanding chest up posture, people do better in they do better in the interviews. And if you're in like a hunched over, you know, it's kind of submissive posture, they do worse in the
That's kind of like
interviews.
the arms crossed or closed off.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
So body language affects your neurotransmitters.
And I do
affects
think,
your,
it's a big deal that you're going to go into a deadlift and somebody starts talking posture and you have an identification of what that correct
Yeah.
posture is, and you get into it, and then you're working with a coach, you're getting feedback on that posture, and you know the success of a lift or the success of like how you're feeling going into the lift is going to matter to like what a correct posture is, and that's a big problem for a lot of people who don't go to the gym regularly though, because they're going to get into a squat with terrible posture and everything feels wrong, everything looks off, and they don't really know what they're doing. And I don't know.
This gets at it. We did an episode and Do More Better where we talked about confidence and confidence. We think of confidence as this thought process, you know, like you believe you can do it, you think you can do it, and that's what confidence is. Confidence sometimes is an action. You know, it is acting as though you can do it. You know, it is standing with good posture. It is making eye contact. It is putting your shoulders up, and sometimes you act it long enough. What happens is your brain is trying to figure out why you're doing that. You know, and your brain's like, oh, move because I can. You know, and so then you can almost manipulate your own like thought processes and your own actually your neurotransmitters, your biology, your testosterone levels go up as if you have good posture and you have a more open body language, and so you're basically faking your mind into doing the lift by doing something you can control, which is your body. You know, controlling how you're standing, how you're walking. It's pretty hard to make yourself think something that you don't think. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I 100%. And your actions on a daily.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and you brought up habits and like consistency, and that if you do that action every single day, it starts to become who you are, not just what you're doing.
Well, I mean, I remember when I was younger, and my dad would drop me off to play at a friend's house, and I would get out of the truck, and he would say, "Act like you fucking know something. You're never going there again." That was his thing every single time. But his thing was basically like,
Yeah.
don't act like a dipshit. Like, you know how you're supposed to act.
Yeah,
You know, and sometimes that's, before a lifter goes up, like, you've heard me say, people like,
Yeah.
don't think about the weight. You know exactly what you're supposed to do up here. Don't think about the weight at all. You've gone through these steps a million times.
for sure. Yeah.
You know,
Just- yep.
you're never going to have perfect form at 90% and above.
Nope.
You know,
You're-
but if you go through your checklist in your head, like you're talking about your posture, you're going to do under a squat bar, chest up, big deep breath in. Mm-hmm. And you recite that every time, it's just going to be natural. And that's where, like Ed used to say, whether I'm warming up with the bar or I'm under 900 pounds, it's always my same approach.
It's all
Yeah,
habits.
I was thinking specifically of like Ed talking about the deadlift and like getting in and wedging in and getting the right posture. I feel like that's the most watched clip I've ever seen of Ed giving feedback to people
Yeah,
is the deadlift.
Just do the same thing. And that was kind of like, that was always my dad's thing when he would say that, like, if, you know how to be a good kid, be a good kid. Like, I don't need to hear that you were acting like an idiot.
Right, and like it's weird, like bringing. So we had an old one of our old supervisors used to he'd be in front of a room and he'd be like, "Do you wear deodorant?" And like everybody in the room says yes, and he's like, "But think about it."
That number's gone down tremendously.
Yeah, it's
these
gone down
days,
a lot.
though.
Yeah, it's kind of. But think about it.
Losing deodorant people by the day.
Yeah.
When you first started wearing deodorant, you just did it because you didn't want to stink around people you found attractive, right? And you did it for years and years and years. And one day it was Christmas vacation, and you get up and you're going nowhere, and you put on deodorant. You're not going to see anybody. It doesn't matter if you stink around people, but it becomes a habit. And what happens is your brain starts to convince you why that's the right thing to do. And now we all think we're supposed to put on deodorant, but like, it's just because it's a habit. And so what we're trying to do in weightlifting is make it so that your bad habits go away because you haven't done them for a while. And then these become new habits, and you don't actually have to think about them anymore. And your brain just convinces you this is why you do it.
Repetition. And that's what we've talked about even when we did the mentality one with diet stuff. Like, repetition is everything. It's not just in the weight room. It's everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
If you do the same thing over and over, I mean, some people say that's crazy.
Well,
If-
I mean,
if
that
you
is the
keep
hard
fucking
part when
up,
it's
yeah.
something that doesn't contribute. I mean, if you have somebody who has like, bad eating habits and it just starts becoming habitual to where they're feeding themselves a way that doesn't promote something.
Right, and you see it in lifting too, where they've been doing it wrong for so long that they're actually strong doing it wrong.
Right.
And then you give them some changes that are going to make it better, but they're going to have to back up. They're going to have to drop the weight, or they're going to have to do more reps with that, and it's going to take work to make that into a new habit. But for the lifters listening to that, just because it drops in weight doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. Like what you need to do is do that until that becomes your new habit, and then you'll start getting stronger at it.
I mean, that's like a hard shot to the ego for a lot of people.
It's rough, yeah, and I get it. It's rough. Like I know for me, deadlift was one that came natural. Like I could just pick it up, but it was ugly.
And it'd be hard because there's a lot of fly by night coaches on the internet. You know what I mean? And do you really want to listen to them? You change your form and your lifts don't come back up.
Right.
You know what I mean? You hear stories like Louis Simmons when AJ Roberts came to Westside. And you got to take some steps back to go forward, but he ended up squatting 1,200.
Yeah.
He came in at 1,000, and he was like, "Well, I already squat 1,000. What do I need this guy for?" You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I'm already in the top 90th percentile, but do you want to be in the top 95th? And that takes a lot more work to get there.
And what are your thoughts on weight training? Actually, any sport can be very depressive. Setbacks like you might. We talk about the more advanced you get as a lifter, the harder it is to get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It might take you a year to put 5 or 10 pounds on a lift. You might go backwards on another lift. And especially in like the sport of powerlifting, not everybody. Actually, I would say most people are not great squatters, benchers, and deadlifters at the same time. They're usually 2 out of the 3.
My initial thought, I think culturally we have a misconception about pain, and what that means. And so we look at like our immune system is like when you get sick, what that is your immune system getting stronger and responding to that. When your muscles burn, that what that is that your muscles getting stronger to that. Like when you feel anxiety, like a lot of people or you feel frustrated, like they see that as a problem. And it's not a problem. What that is your emotional system is just like your immune system, just like your muscular system. It is in a period of growth. And so when it's hard, that's when you're actually making growth. And so I think as a society, we need to reframe the whole idea is like going to the gym when it feels great means that you're not actually getting much out of it. Mm-hmm. And so going to the gym when you don't feel like going and you feel like crap and you're tired, I mean, not with injury. I'm not talking about with injury. If you have an injury, don't go to the gym. Take some time off from that. But I just feel like as a culture, we've gotten to this place is that when I'm uncomfortable and things aren't going well, that's the problem. And it's really what I would say is like, no, this is when you're in a period of growth. This is the only time you can grow is when you're in that uncomfortable range and pushing yourself to a place that like it's hard for you. It's sort of like doing a curl with a 20-pound dumbbell. You don't get much muscle burn, but if you up that to a 40 and now you're getting a burn, most everybody would say, well, that's better, right? It's better. Well, the same thing happens with your emotional system is that when you're frustrated and you're anxious and you're uncomfortable and you do it anyway, you're finally in the growth zone. But we'd have to start seeing it that way as a culture.
Like just facing your fears.
Yeah, it's the basic idea of facing your fears, and then like not treating them like it's a problem to be uncomfortable or a problem to like it not go well. If it didn't go well, but you did it anyway, like in your mind, that's a little success. That's a little victory that you just had over. You were more powerful than your emotional system at that point. You're more powerful than your mind because you did it anyway.
Yeah, I just think people really falter depending on the context of that. If somebody's afraid of flying and we say, well, you got to face your fears. If you're going to manage that, then go get on an airplane. People tend to feel like that works pretty well. But if you tell someone who's having a headache, like, I think you really should just have this headache, they don't respond to that. They feel like, why would I ever do that? I think there's a lot of people out there who know coming to the gym is going to hurt, and they think, why would I do that? That's.
I've had plenty of people. The first time they work out, they're like, "Oh, I was so sore." I worked with a trainer before, but I got so sore, so I quit going. And I was like, "Well, it ain't gonna be any fucking better."
Right.
You need to be for like a month consistently before it's not gonna fucking hurt.
Yeah. But that soreness is like what I was talking about earlier. Is like that's
growth.
That's the good time. Now you're growing. You have microfiber tears, and your body is going to repair those, and you're going to come back stronger. But like until we can start to see it that way, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
That's-
but see, I even think about that. Like, that's healthy lifting. You
Yeah.
and I are at a different spot now,
Yeah.
where like, we were talking about we're aging and what our numbers look like, and
Yeah.
and what a PR is supposed to be. You tell someone who's got knee pain, you're going to go do this, and you're going to have knee pain. Most people, and you see this in like aging lifters or just aging people, they think, well, if squatting is going to hurt my knee, why would I go hurt my knee? And the three of us would go, right, you're supposed to go hurt
yeah.
your knee.
Yeah.
Not injury, not an unhealthy, like let's push a tendon past what it's supposed to do, but the idea that you're supposed to be uncomfortable and that
Yeah.
pain is supposed to exist. Like there's a weird flip over when people go, right, you're supposed to be on an airplane. If you're afraid of airplanes, face your fears. But there's this idea of, injury is not supposed to occur. There's this idea that pain is not supposed to occur. And I mean like real pain, not soreness. I mean like, yeah, this knee feels terrible. I mean, right now I'm dealing with a shoulder where I think like, this shoulder is going to feel like garbage the moment I do anything. And it's like, yep, it's going to feel like garbage.
Well, I think some of that comes to also like in my field is that there's bad trainers out there where like, if you have somebody with a bad knee problem, you can change their squat technique and fix that pretty quickly.
Right.
You can change their stance with where their toes are pointed in or out, whether you sit to a box, a high box, a low box. I mean, there's like next to zero shear force on a knee if you
Right.
actually learn how to box squat.
Which
But there's a lot of uneducated people out there.
Agreed.
Or they do like, I haven't box squat. Then you watch it, and I was like, that's just like a regular fucking squat, and it still looks terrible.
Right, which I think that got to what we were talking about before we started, like off camera or off mic, is like I think what I learned from you when I came into the gym, what I learned from a lot of the good trainers is like you can explain it 50 fucking times, and they may not do it right. But what you do to be a good trainer is to find a way to make them do it. Because we learn through actions. We don't learn from lectures. We don't learn from like all the parents listening to this. Like every time you lecture your kid, they're not learning. They've shut it all off. And as a coach, if you're lecturing and explaining, sit back, push your knees out, put your chest up. But if you find a way to get them to do it, you throw a box back there, and you get them to sit back onto that box, and then they go, oh, that's what it feels like. And then they learn. Then they truly learn. And so that's where I think the good coaches come in. Like, I see so many coaches out there giving what I call emotional and cognitive feedback. They're telling you got to believe it, or like you got to want it. Well, when I hear you got to want it, you've got to I wanted it. Trust me, I wanted it. It just buried me.
Just not enough.
Yeah, I tried. How do you know they wanted it? Well, because they got it.
That
Well,
boy's
how
got a
do-
lot of quit in him.
Right. It's a circular argument. Well, they must not have wanted it because they didn't get it. It's like, no, it's bullshit.
That's why I always quote the old Dennis Henson. You just weren't strong enough.
Right. Dennis Henson is on it there. You just were not strong enough. And that's really what it is.
And I tell everybody, not every day is awesome in training. And people
No.
always need to remember that.
No.
You might go to the day and it's a dog shit day, but we talked about that a little bit too. People get so in their head and like almost get depressed about it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I agree. And as a coach, back to that idea is like when I coach now, what I'm trying to do is be clever enough to find a way that makes them do it. And so, like, if I'm having trouble getting somebody to deadlift with their hips closer to the bar, I'm gonna put it on blocks, because that makes it easier to do it, and then they feel it, for the first time. Or I'm having trouble getting somebody to sit back, I'm gonna throw a box in there and make them sit back under it. I'm having trouble with somebody tucking their lats on a bench press. I'm gonna throw a band on it, pulling it towards the wall, so that way they have to tuck their lats and pull it in there, because trust me, your lifters are trying to do what you tell them to do. They don't know how to get their body to do it yet. And if you can be clever enough to figure out a way to get their body to do it, they'll start doing it. And if they start doing it over time, it'll become how they do it. But just explaining it in 10 different ways and trying to say it louder, trying to be it's not doing anything for them.
Well, and that's where I've always had, like, in my field, I don't, if you have an exercise science degree, I don't care. Like, I don't have any more respect for you than anybody else. Because to me, like, it's under the bar experience. It's going to be more than anything.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Louis Simmons could read for the longest time. I don't have any idea. His writing
care.
is terrible. I've seen him
It's
write
awful,
before, and it's
yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
But the guy is like one of the smartest people,
Right.
just of his sheer experience.
It's his experience.
You know what I
It's
mean?
up-
And
yeah.
the things he's did. And like Dave Tate, he obviously went to college. He talks about his dyslexia and stuff like that. And I mean, but that guy learned so much just from being at Westside.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And you guys had that. You had an episode on Should You Compete, and that one of the things that stood out for me on that is like how much you learn when you compete. and like things that you can't explain to somebody or you can't teach. You just had a great meet here, the Ed Cohen Classic.
That went awesome.
It was amazing. And then, but the things that like my lifters are asking me is like, so when should I hit my last warm up? Like you don't even realize that's a question. Until you go do a meet, and you don't learn what to do with that until you do a meet. And so like all of those different things that you learn when you're in that like uncomfortable space of doing a meet, you can't learn them. You can't learn them in the training session. You can't learn them by talking to somebody.
Well, that's
You
like
have
where
to
Ed
go
said
do it.
you're not in your home, which some of the people who train here, it works out because they're in their home gym.
Yeah, that helps. Yep.
There was a girl, she started training here and she did her first meet at the Ed Cohen meet and she was super nervous. And I went over and I said, and her boyfriend trains her too. I said, her husband, sorry, I said, you'll be fine. I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to dive bomb your first squat because you're super fucking nervous. Second, third ones are going to be great. I said, by the time deadlifts get here, you're going to want the whole fucking thing to be over because you're tired of sitting here all fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're going to have a great day. I said, everybody does the same thing. Every lifter, I don't care if you've done 100 meets or you've done one meet. We all get super nervous.
the
We can
same
barely
thing.
eat breakfast. We dive bomb the first squat just to get it out of the way. And then the rest of the day is great. And then by the time deadlifts get here, we're like, I just want to fucking leave and go eat and drink.
It's funny you said that. Like, I think when you have the experience and you can describe to somebody what is going to happen. I know Wes and I, like, with somebody with anxiety, and we come in and I go, oh, I bet, like, when you start feeling anxious, your heart rate goes up and your breathing goes off. They think you're magic because you just described
Right.
exactly what happens to them.
Yeah.
Because you're so good at that.
You tell people a response burst is coming.
Yeah.
Like something,
Oh,
a big reaction.
if you
And
explain a
they're like,
response burst,
man, it went
yeah.
exactly how you said it was going to go.
So response versus thing is like once something's been reinforced for a while, so like it's gotten rewarded in some way. If you remove the reward, what will happen is people do the behavior more. It's a really weird thing that happens. Is so like
you go up to an elevator and you push a button and nothing happens. Nobody goes, well, I guess the elevator's broken. What they do is they mash that button
Hit the
11
button a bunch more, yeah.
times.
Because you want the reward.
You want
Right,
the reward, right?
you're
Right.
right.
But you're
Man.
not getting the reward anymore if you put your money into a drink machine and nothing comes out. You don't just sit there. You first you hit it real hard and then you cuss at it and then you scream at it and then you yell at it and you shake it and you call it every name in the book and then eventually you have to accept it's not going to happen anymore. And whenever we're working with a client or a patient, like, and we can describe a response burst, they think that we know so much. When you are working with one of your athletes and you can tell them this is exactly what's going to happen,
You're a dive bomb.
oh my gosh! That now, like, he knows everything, and now know what you can do. You can tell them to put their chest up, and they might as well listen to you because
Yep.
the last time you were right. So like having as a coach who has knowledge. So if a coach is here who doesn't compete and doesn't understand what's going to happen when they go to a meet, they're not going to listen to you. You have to be able to have that knowledge to describe it, so that way you know your shit. If you don't know your shit, then you might actually be telling them right stuff. It's not like you're wrong, but why would they listen to you? And so, like, having that, like, we call it face validity in psychology. And so, like, what you think that what they're telling you is going to work. Face validity is such a big thing in psychology. Like, if you don't think it will work, you just won't try it. And so, like, for us, when we're doing clinical work, not only do we have to tell people, like, this is what's going to work, but this is why it's going to work too, and be able to describe that, and that's why they're probably more likely to do it.
Yeah, you guys have been talking for 20 minutes about competing and meets and stuff, and I just keep thinking of the idea that
You've only done one competition, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I think people miss how coping is actually supposed to be skill development. That if we have a client come in and we say, you go to the gym, and somebody goes and gets on the elliptical for 20 minutes, that's great. That's better than what they were doing. But I
Yep.
don't think people really understand how real coping strategies are actually skill development, and that going to the gym is a skill, and that when somebody comes here and they consult with one of you guys as coaches, that they are going to the gym. You have to know if you're going to lift for muscle development, if you're going to lift for strength, if you're going to lift for athletic movement and dynamics, like, that's a completely different way of training all the time. And when you guys say, should you do a competition, and then people come here and they are in the middle of being uncomfortable and getting feedback from a coach telling you, yeah, you're going to dive bomb, like, what they're really doing is skill development. And that's when their coping strategy of going to the gym is constantly becoming something that's very, very legitimate as a coping strategy, rather than just telling somebody, hey, hold your breath in for 4 seconds and then breathe out for 4 seconds, and, like, that's a great way to manage anxiety.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about real skill development. There's some Tibetan monk that can breathe way better than I can. and there's guys doing ice plunges who are doing something way more advanced than just a cold shower. When somebody comes to the gym, I don't think people really understand that you should be developing the skill of going to the gym.
Now, would you prescribe the gym, like for say anxiety, over medicine?
Oh, hell yes.
If somebody came into
gosh.
my office and said, I can't pay you, I need to go to the gym and pay my gym membership and I'll be there 4 times a week, I would say, go forth and God bless. You don't need to come to me.
I've had patients who don't come to therapy, and I said, well, if you were at the gym, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have to be, if you took a walk, like you got out and
You committed to something.
you did something, because that's really doing more of what we wanted anyway.
If somebody said it's either you or I go to soccer practice 5 times a week, I would say go to soccer practice.
Right, because that's really what we're doing clinically, is trying to get stuff like that to happen. It doesn't always have to be the gym, but like and I think Wes would agree with this, is like when we both act as clinical psychologists now. What I'm trying to do is get you to live a life that you like more, a life that is more valuable and meaningful, and a lot of that has to do with your physical health. Other things that has to do with your relationships. It can have to do with your spiritual health. It could have to do with your hobbies and your interests, and just spending more time engaging with those things. And so, yeah, if you're going to go to the gym, I'll support that, as opposed to coming to see me. Really, even coming to see me, I'm just trying to figure out what to do that's clever enough to get that to happen anyway.
I think we offer something different than
Yeah.
that, but I also think if I had to choose, we're talking about. We were, off mic. We were talking about behavioral activation and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're talking about somebody who's either going to go to the gym 4 times a week or come see me go to the gym, like at 100%.
Agreed. And I would say anybody listening to this, Wes just brought up behavioral activation. Who listen to this, Google behavioral activation. Please do it. Because treatment for depression is generally what you think is SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. There's evidence that they help some, but if you look up behavioral activation, just Google it, you'll see just tons and tons of research that getting more active is very likely to help you with your depression. And so, but I'm always surprised that it's, you hear bad ideas, like they just flourish like wildfire,
Yeah.
Good ideas like behavioral activation you don't hear about very much.
So just behavioral activation is just the idea that eventually your brain will catch up, that your behavior will.
It's like the 21 days to form a habit kind of a thing.
Well, it's just, I guess I think of you said, earlier you said not all training days are good days.
Yeah, not every day's awesome. It's not always going to be awesome at the gym.
There are mornings you wake up, it's, 5:30. You don't feel like getting out of bed. You don't feel like going to the gym. You don't feel strong. You don't feel engaged. But how many times would you see somebody and after they're done working out, they would say, I'm glad I came. And it's just the idea that your emotions, your thoughts, your brain will catch up to what you did. No different than, if you're eating and you are trying to eat until you're full, you pretty well have to wait 20 minutes before your body's going to get the feedback that it's full.
Well, it's like they always said you should eat slow.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so you can eat and you can be done, and then 20 minutes later your brain catches up and goes, oh, you're full. Well, it's no different than you feel like garbage. It's 5:30. You walked into the gym. You don't want to be there. You don't want to lift. You don't feel strong. And then at the end, you're like, I'm really glad I was here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the psychological response is every time before a meet I get the nervous shits?
I always had to do that too.
How long did it take?
33 minutes.
I had to poop before every athletic competition ever.
I used to, when we were in track, I used to get the nervous farts when we'd be warming up. You'd just be running farting the whole time.
Oh, I always had to
The
poop
shitting thing
before
came on before
games.
powerlifting meets, especially even when I'm running a meet. But I think it's more, I get nervous for the people that I train that are competing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the meets don't make me as nervous anymore, the meets themselves, because I've done enough of them.
Yeah.
But
I get more nervous for a lifter that I'm training than I do myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always just like, well, it's time to shit.
I actually, no joke, I think there's something pretty evolutionarily sound about it. I think it is your body knowing you're going to war and it's time to evacuate. And that is why our 2023 issues and what we have to deal with, one of the things Drew and I talk about very often is that evolution does not prepare you for your current environment. It prepares you for the environment that your ancestors came from. And so 500 years ago, I mean, you look at the three of us, like we should have been on a boat raiding, some nearby village with axes. And you don't do that. When you sign up for a meet and you're going to do a meet, all of a sudden things start getting very serious, and things start you have 700, 800 pounds on your back. Things could really go wrong. And so when your body says evacuate, I think that's really evolutionary sound where it's like, no, get rid of this because you're gonna have to do something very serious.
Right. So most of the anxiety responses that we have are basically our fight or flight responses kicking in.
Yeah.
It's that old part of our brain that's been there for thousands and thousands of years. And one of the first things you want to do is be lighter. So get rid of all the stuff you don't need.
Yeah.
Shit it. Get it out of there.
Which is crazy because like if you almost get in like a car accident, you can feel your asshole pucker up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then a
Like
lot of people
you're
do
shutting
get,
it down.
Well, a lot of people who do get in car accidents do shit though too.
yeah.
So
True.
it's evacuate and they shit or piss. It just
That's so embarrassing.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, but the other things are happening too. Like you're starting to sweat. Why? Because if a predator grabs you and you're wet, it's harder for them to hold on to you. Your heart rate is increasing.
God, I must always think there's a predator after me.
I had a buddy.
I sweat from like Friday until Saturday night when the meet was over. I fucking sweat for like 24 hours straight.
When your heart rate is up, because if you're in danger, your heart rate should be up. Your blood pressure is up. Your galvanic skin pressure is another thing that happens. We can't really tell that, but like if you measure the pressure of your skin, it's actually tighter too. And so it's like all of the things that would happen is if you were being attacked by a predator or you're raiding a village, and the same thing were happening. So shit and evacuate all that stuff. It happened to be on my second squad at Olympia one time, so
I remember that.
Yeah. So we got to bring up shit your pants stories, right?
Yeah.
And so it's evacuating. It's unnecessary stuff. Just get rid of it because you need to be lighter to get away from the predator or to attack the other village.
God, that'd be so fast.
I can't believe you're not faster than what you are. With the amount you shit your pants.
It's not necessarily the times I shit. It's just the number of times I have to shit.
Yeah. What number are we talking a day?
Oh, usually I'm like a one a day, but I get those weird like dagger dumps sometimes, and I got to shit like 3 times in a row. I've learned just to sit there and let it happen instead of getting up and coming back later on.
Oh, stay a while.
Yeah, just stay a while.
Yeah.
Which I don't really enjoy. I'm not a game player. I don't play on my phone while I'm doing it.
Oh, you don't?
Nah, my legs go to sleep, and I feel like my asshole's drying up.
Good for you, man. You're there with your own mind. Your mind's pretty fucked up too.
I mean, it's all right. I'm gonna make it through the day.
No, it's not in a depressive way. More in a. I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not like a serial killer or something like that.
No, probably not.
I mean, I could kill someone if I had to, and I would have.
Right.
And I've said that before. If someone came into my house, I have no problems killing somebody that isn't supposed to be there.
No, yeah, different. Yeah.
But that's a whole different mentality and psychological thing, I'm sure. Also,
I had actually, no joke, a real interesting conversation about that at one point. Somebody was asking me, like the responsibility of taking a life and all that kind of stuff. And we actually got into a really cool conversation about, okay, you are a private business owner.
Mm-hmm.
You are a coach. You manage other people. We were talking about the meat, managing the meat. You talked about for 3 days, you felt like a predator was after you. Look, I mean this as a very sincere compliment, Brett. Like, think about the amount of responsibility you assume, and think about how practiced you are at assuming responsibility, and think about how that's different compared to maybe some 18-year-old we strap with a gun and say, go out and fight a war, and they feel trauma or some big response from the responsibility of it all. But you say, somebody comes into my home and I'm going to protect it. I also think like, well, how practiced are you at responsibility?
Yeah.
yeah.
How much have you started increasing the level? The water level just keeps going up about how much, like for 3 days, a predator was coming after you. Because for 3 days, I mean,
you had lifters doing a meet.
People do not understand the amount of effort and work that goes into a meet. People like, he tells me like, I'm going to be at the meet, but I'm going to be occupied the entire time. I'm going to be either helping Brett. I'm going to be coaching the people that I'm coaching.
We could never put these meets on without the people. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility that Amber and I take on, but like especially like the helpers we have.
For sure. Yep.
These meets would never run the way they do if we didn't have the people.
You guys.
But think about that, and think
setting up,
about
but
the
like-
tribe. Think about what supports you, and then think about how much responsibility are you used to assuming, and then compare that to
you would shoot somebody. Yeah. It wouldn't be a question with just the amount of times that you've practiced being responsible for people.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes it sociopathic at all. I actually would say that just is you expressing the habit that you've developed over the past 10, 15 years, and it's the natural. And that's what we're shooting for, making it become natural, normal. And I mean, not you shooting somebody, but but we're shooting for like you've practiced a behavior so long that it becomes a part of your personality. It becomes who you are, and so you've practiced taking responsibility for people, and you would do the same thing with your wife.
Well, and I think I know like Wes, you've started your business, and then like that becomes, you do it so long, the whole blood, sweat, and tears thing, building your business, and people are like, well, you need to delegate. It's not always about delegating. It's very hard to trust someone because no one, and that's the old saying, no one will ever care about your business the same way that you do.
Yep.
Exactly.
So to delegate it out, it's like, well, I could delegate it out and explain to them for 20 minutes, or I can just take 10 minutes and do it myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of business people. And there's a lot of different business podcasts I listen to, and they talk about that can hold back your growth and stuff like that. But I don't know. That's a very fine line to trust someone.
I think that's I don't mean to make it like hokey or anything, but I think that's kind of a big issue in psychology that we miss with men in the first place. That as you gain all this skill development and as you gain all this ability, when you say I can deal with this in 10 minutes, like the amount of people that are going to walk through the door in this gym that can really contribute and help you out goes down every year. The percentage of people that can truly contribute in here goes down every year. I've got like 3 or 4 men in my life that can truly give me feedback. That's about it. And, we talk in 2023, men, you need to be vulnerable. You need to be communicating, all that kind of stuff. It's like, I've got like 4 guys that can truly give me feedback on stuff. It's not that I am unwilling to be vulnerable. It's that I have to pick and choose when I'm going to be vulnerable because what you offer me is not what these other people offer.
Agreed, yeah. That shows up. And like I'm thinking about when I would squat, if I have a heavy squat on my back, literally I heard nothing except from you or Matt. If Justin was there, I'd hear Justin. And it's like I wasn't consciously doing that. But like what happens is it becomes through like there are only a few people that like really you start to trust. Yeah.
They know you. They know your context.
Them,
you have trust
and
with
so
them.
that would show up in running a business. That would show
Well, that's
up.
kind of like you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around.
Right.
For sure. Yep.
You know what I mean? All of us have like a friend that's like, all of us have that one friend. You know what I mean? But they're like somebody you've known forever. You know what I mean? This guy, Michael Franzese, he's an interesting guy. He was a capo in the Colombo crime family, and he left. Like he found God and left. But he wrote a book called "I Quit the Mob and Lived," and they had another one, a business book called "I'll Make You an Offer You Can't Refuse." And he shows how the mob is structured. It was basically a very well-run business. But his biggest thing is you should have someone like the mob had a consigliere, which was someone who got no benefit or loss, but was good for advice. Because getting advice from someone who can benefit from you, or is going to be a yes man, doesn't do you any good.
Right.
And like in training, oh, that looked good. Oh yeah, that was great. No, like I just tell people how it is. I always have.
Yeah.
No, that squat was fucking terrible. Or you need to fix this. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's a big part of therapy that gets missed. That we're in a big age of like affirmative care. We're a big age of people Googling.
I get words of affirmation are great. Everybody likes words of affirmation, but be honest. Like not everybody's a winner.
I just think it's he gave a talk at one point at a training, and he was giving a talk about getting buy-in from clients when you don't have access to what they're doing outside of the therapy room. And a lot of that just comes down to, like, what are you doing as an individual to contribute and be somebody that is worth listening to? You're talking about like time under the bar. You're talking about like who you are as a coach. Like, it's just a big difference when you are someone that can actually contribute to someone versus, you ask somebody to come into a therapy room and to be vulnerable and to give you something, but you better make damn sure that you are somebody that can give something back when you get there. There is a, I don't know. I have a high value to read, and it's not like it sounds small, but it's also like if you come into my room, I should have been reading more than you the books that you can't take the time to read all of those books so that I can offer you something that you don't have either the time or the effort or the ability on your own. And I just think that's something that gets missed.
And you have to sell that you can offer something too. So like,
what's
I
that
know.
whole under promise and over deliver?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. What it's like, I watched Justin Groff squat one time, and once I saw that, I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, how did he do that? Like the way he did it, and like Justin didn't have to explain to me I'm a great squatter. He didn't have to and he even explain how to do it. I just watched it and I was like, that looked good.
Right.
And so basically, whatever he tells me from now, and I think what Wes is bringing up as a therapist, as a coach, as whatever, you have to be somebody that's valuable to listen to, and that comes with how you live your life.
Yep.
And if you or somebody lives your life in a way that looks like something we want, then what you say has more power. But there are lots of people on Instagram, lots of people in the gym that are just giving out advice, and you're like,
Selling
yeah,
falsehoods.
But what
Yep.
the fuck? You look at you don't squat very much. You know, like it doesn't look good when you do it. Like, so why are you telling me to keep my chest? And they may not even be saying the wrong thing. You know, they're saying what they're saying might even be right, but like you don't buy who it's coming from.
Yeah, you were talking for yourself about your own job and making sure that you were taking risks and communicating the way you wanted to communicate. And I think of that very much like, if I'm going to talk to somebody about making and taking risks, it's like you better be
be willing to do it
that
yourself.
takes and makes risks.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think you have to, like especially in the trainer / coach, whatever fitness area. Like most people will look at like, well, what'd you do as a lifter?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I was not like some crazy over the top exceptional lifter. I was an okay lifter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had some okay, like I lifted raw all the time, like drug free,
Mm-hmm.
and my numbers were okay, but I'm not like, but I've been around and I've seen a lot and I've worked with a lot of people. Like I worked with you, I worked with Justin a lot, but they see some guy that's we talked about before, like a flash in the pan on Instagram.
Right.
But some of those people
Right.
are just like genetic freaks.
Right.
Right. No matter what they do, as long as they lift a weight, they're going to get stronger.
Yeah. So can they really tell you? You know what I mean? Like that's the very first episode we did of our podcast was the common denominator. Don't look at what one person does. Look what 99 people are doing.
And what they did for 10 years too.
Yeah, like Justin was in the sport for a long time. You know, he had a little hiccup in there,
Yep.
but he was in the sport for a long time. You see some of these other guys who shoot up. The brightest stars burn out the fastest. You know what I mean? They're up and then they're out. Well, how's that guy going to tell you how to lift when he just has like a genetic ability? I'm not saying he doesn't know how to do it, but do some looking around, and like not
Right.
everybody has to be. Like we had a high school football coach. I don't think he could even walk and chew gum, but the guy was like an offensive genius. But he could study an offense and break it down. You know what I mean?
When you hear him talk, and then you're like, oh, like he knows his shit.
Yeah.
See, I always say Brett Favre would have made the most terrible QB coach ever.
Yeah,
Because if somebody
Montana
goes, "Hey,
too.
yeah, how do I throw the ball 70 yards?" I mean, you throw it.
It's like the water boy. Remember the water boy? Whenever he describes how to tackle somebody in the water boy.
Yeah.
If I get the ball, and then I go.
There's a weird thing that people I don't think know how to look for. Like when we talk about the skill to go in the gym, like your coach should have known how to struggle as opposed to just having some genetic gift.
Right, and it like if your coach tells you to do something and you ask why, and they don't have a good explanation, it's probably not very good,
Right.
you know. And so, like as a coach, it's like you better have a good reason why, you know, because why makes face validity is what we were talking about earlier. Is like it makes the lifter more likely to buy into doing it.
Oh, 100%. And I remember like one of the very first times I ever called Westside, and I was so nervous. And you talk to Louis, and he's very standoffish at first because I think he wants to know if you have like the slightest fucking clue what you're talking about. And I always kind of thought like, okay, well, I get that, to an extent, whatever. And I feel like I've developed that over a while because then people ask me stuff, and I just kind of like loosely talk to them until you actually. Because how many times do you explain something to somebody and they just do whatever the fuck they want to anyway?
Yes,
Well,
I'm
and
glad
you
you're-
know-
well, I'm glad he's. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I'm glad he's bringing this up because, like, I would say, so as a therapist and as a clinical psychologist, if somebody comes to see Wes and myself for therapy, like, sometimes we won't give you any advice, and that kind of freaks people out. Like,
Yeah.
we won't say anything. We won't say anything. Maybe see you 3 or 4 sessions. What we're waiting for is when you're ready to ask. When you're ready to say, what should I do? Or what do you think? And I see so many coaches, so many random people around the gym who have been at it for months. So they know, they know 85% of it, but I'm sorry, that extra 15% is a big 15%, And so like for me as a coach, I'm kind of like you. It's like, I won't tell you anything until you're actually asking. Because nobody's going to change something. I see so many people just walk up, give advice, tell you what to do, tell you how to do this. They didn't freaking ask. And if they didn't ask, they're not going to do it.
Sometimes even if they ask, they're not
Even
really
if,
asking.
Even if they ask,
you know?
they're not really asking. What they're asking you is to tell them how well they're already doing it.
Right.
And so you wait until they ask. And that's something you're big on. I know I've seen you do it too, and I do it myself. Is like I walk around the gym just seeing atrocious things, unless it's going to injure them. If it's going to injure them, then I'll correct it. But if it's
Oh,
not,
you're better than me.
right?
So I would even go further than that. Somebody comes up to you and says, "Have you seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie?" What they really mean is, I've seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah.
movie. I want to talk about it
Yeah,
to you.
yeah.
They don't say that. I actually use the rule of like, I try, even in therapy, I try not to really even answer a question until about 3 times.
Yes.
Once you've asked me about 3 times, I think you're pretty serious about wanting to know the answer.
Well, and I think it's kind of like the old idea. I used to work with this guy back in the day, he was an old meth head. And, well, I say that because he ended up getting back into it later on. But he got clean for years. But, his family tried to force him to go to rehab. And
Yep.
you guys obviously in a way, you can't force
No.
anybody to do
No.
anything.
You
You
cannot
drop them off
fabricate a rock
at, you drop
bottom.
them off at rehab, and they'll just walk away.
Yep.
If they
And
want
it-
to go,
Yep.
they want to, if they want to learn how to squat right, or they want to talk to you about their issues.
Yep.
But they have to want to. Mom, my mom made me come to a therapist, so I guess I'm just gonna fucking sit here
Yep.
and whatever. Like she says I masturbate too much. What do you think?
Most
Oh, we had-
underreported behavior ever.
Yeah, so we had a big conversation about how much is too much.
Oh, I was
masturbation,
working with a
like-
kid when we were on internship, and he was, he was just
Don't give too
masturbating.
many details,
Yeah,
but
he was
yeah, like,
masturbating a lot, and it was just the true consultation between me, Drew, and like one of the most skilled practitioners we've ever worked with, Tom Reimers. We were all looking at each other like, they asked me, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I guess I'm just trying to get this kid back to average," and they go, "What is that? Like, what do you think is average?" And we had a big conversation about what would actually be average.
So
for,
when your
for
dick
a
starts to
kid.
get raw,
Yes.
start
Yeah.
right before that.
That is what we come to. If it's
Yeah.
causing
If
a
it's
problem,
problematic,
yeah. Like
if you're having skin irritations, you should
skin
stop.
irritation 1 time a day, 2 times a day. If if you've got great skin, then you can jerk off more.
If you're gonna
Talk about genetically
Actually,
gifted.
it probably negatively correlates to how much you deadlift, because if you deadlift a lot, you got calluses and you're gonna rub the thing raw. But if you don't deadlift much, you can
well,
probably
but what
jerk
if you're
off a
like
lot more.
not a lotion guy? If you're using lotion, you can probably do more.
Oh, that's fair. So lotion and no deadlifting, you could probably jerk off 3 times a day, I would guess.
How old was he? Like how old a kid are we talking about though?
I don't want to give too much client detail
No,
because
yeah,
I don't
you
want to
can
put
give
anybody in a
yeah,
bad spot.
so,
but-
yeah.
Let's say
But, like,
was he 8 to 14?
No.
I would also say what Wes is saying, what is he talking about, is not an uncommon issue. Like we've talked about, is like for a adolescent male, they've been going their whole lives without realizing they have a PlayStation 24 in their legs, like right between their legs,
Yeah.
that they have not been playing with for the past 13 years of their life. Now all of a sudden they can play with it.
Right.
And they have the most immediate reward that you can get. And so like parents listening to this who's got a young boy masturbating a lot, it's not that weird. It's fairly normal.
Well, yeah, obviously everybody should know that.
Yeah, they should know it, but it's always. I think I imagine for a mother,
Unless you find like a parent finds a picture of themselves in the closet where they're masturbating.
yeah, or one of their bras or something
Yeah,
like that.
that's weird.
But like I imagine for a mother, it's a little more striking than a father. Probably is like, yeah, and they're jerking off. Yep, that makes sense.
Unless there's a picture of dad in there, then it's super weird.
It's all super weird, right? I mean,
I guess so. I don't think you're
we're-
kidding. Now you did you did bring up something that I had wanted to talk about. Is I do think you are notorious for giving good feedback that is corrective. I also think there is a place for giving positive feedback. But where the positive feedback has to be pretty specific too. And I think coaches miss this a lot. And so for me, like a lot of times
It should be in almost all situations.
Yeah, it
It's
should be
specific.
like-
Well,
so
if you
like-
say something too much, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
It does, yeah, it loses
right?
its value for sure. But like particularly with parents, like if you think about how our mind works and what our mind is a problem solver. And so what it means is if your car is broken down, it's going to find out where it's broken down and it's going to fix the problem. But what it doesn't do very well is figuring out where your car is working and acknowledging that.
Right.
And that works fine with your car. It doesn't work very well with a kid, and it also doesn't work very well with a lifter. And so, like, if you only pay attention to when things are broke down and you acknowledge and point them out, one, it pisses a kid off. Like, they get really annoyed with it because they're always being
Doesn't have to be a
corrected.
kid.
No, it doesn't have to be a kid. But then I think also with a lifter, where I see the problem happen is sometimes you have a lifter coming in that they're actually doing a couple things well, and if you ignore those things and only point out the things that they need to fix, what happens is they fix the thing you asked them to, but then they also break the thing that they were doing well. And so what we want them to do is, as a coach and with my lifters, like I want to, particularly if I know they're working on something, is like I want to tell them, don't just, it's not like, wow, that was great. No, it's specific. Like, you did a great job of keeping your chest there up and your back was much tighter. That looks good. I want you to work on sitting back.
Well, because it's all kind of a domino effect. You can, if you tell them to fix one thing, it
Yeah.
might fuck up something
It
else that
fucks
they're
up
doing
something
right.
else.
'Cause
Exactly.
It's all,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the whole kinetic chain, the kinesiology of it. Like,
Right.
You have to do it in the right order of what's happening.
Right.
Like if you round over and you deadlift, your shoulders round over. Well, I know the next part is going to be your mid and low back are going to round over. So let's keep all that tight so it doesn't lead to the next part.
Exactly. Yep. And so catching it, pointing it out, and like at least acknowledging the thing they're doing well, even if you're going to correct something, one, it keeps your lifters from being fucking pissed all the time. Like they feel a little bit better, a little bit more accomplished, but they don't break the thing that was working too. So I what's Thinking Fast and Slow? What's the dude's name?
Kahneman?
Yeah. Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah.
Daniel Kahneman has a great book for anybody who's interested in just like learning basic psychology, like not basic. I would say it's high level. High level psychology stuff. Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, but written for the public on just how your mind works. And he talks about how sometimes we think positive reinforcement doesn't work because what happens is if you praise a lift, their next lift is not going to be as good, but it's not because of your praise. What it is an idea of regression to the mean. And so regression to the mean is this mean that you have an average way of performing, and if you do really great, your next performance is not likely to be as good. But if you do really bad, your next performance is likely to be better. So you will regress, and you'll kind of be your average all the time. And so one of the things that happens in coaches, they studied this in the military, and they found that a lot of like military generals felt like positive reinforcement didn't work because every time they praised these were fighter pilots they were looking at, every time they praised them, they didn't do as well the next time.
Yep.
So all these military fighter pilots thought, well, praise isn't working. It's like, no, it's working just fine. The issue is regression to the mean. Like they did great, so their next like a golfer, like if they have a really good round, their next round is not likely to be as good. If you make the Madden cover, right, because you had a great year, your next year is not going to be as good. There's no curse, it's regression to the mean. And so catch the good behavior, and be descriptive in telling them what was good.
Well, that's why I think sometimes missing a lift brings aggression and focus.
Yeah, it does, because it can, or it could just be regression to the mean too. Is like they have an average performance, and
I guess where if they miss a lift and come back and get it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we saw
because it brings focus.
We saw one of my girls this week. She missed her deadlift on her second, and came back and looked a million times better.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, well, that probably activates. So the amygdala is the part of our brain that is in charge of emotional, and so missing if she goes out like. So there's a thing called the Yerkes-Dodson law. So it's basically that you actually want to be at a perfect emotional heightenedness. So, you don't want to go out too calm, and you also don't want to go out too aggressive.
Yeah, it's a normal curve.
Yeah, it's a inverse U, and so basically you want to find the Goldilocks zone for emotional reactivity. So when you go out to hit a deadlift, if you're too calm, you're going to do shit. But if you're too nervous, you're going to do shit. Yeah. You're trying to find that middle range, and her missing what that did is probably activated her emotional system slightly more, made her slightly more focused, slightly more aggressive, and then she did well. So
there's a lot of factors. It's never black and white. It's always rocky road. I mean, that's kind of the thing.
And that's the problem with hindsight descriptions, too.
Right.
It's really easy to find a good description that could be totally bullshit.
Well, and I think out of everything in our conversation today, it shows just the close relationship between psychology, treatment, and whatnot, and training for any competitive event, something that you can progressively get better at.
Right.
Go very hand in hand.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think a good coach should study some psychology, and a good psychologist should study sports.
Yeah.
And I think that I think working out in sports are probably some of the best medicine. But I think that we have a problem that Wes has talked about with society nowadays, which I hope the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way.
It seemed in Australia they just recently identified that physical activity is the number one treatment for depression. So.
Well, and I think I was going to say the old participation trophies. My biggest problem with that is if you tell everybody they're good at something and they're not, what if that kid, instead of you lying to him about being good at football, he's like a world champion chess player, but he'll never play because you've never told him, hey, you know what, you're not fucking good at that, but the Russians, those kids would play every sport. And once they figured out what they were good at, they would slowly start to file them into those sports. But you don't know what they're good at if they don't try a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I also think, when did we start believing that the only things you do are the things you're good at?
Yeah.
I actually, if somebody told me, if I was working with a client and I thought the best thing you could do right now, I mean, you can tell this in 5 minutes with a lot of people. The best thing you could do right now is start going to the gym 4 times a week and try to drop 20, 30 pounds. But they would say, well, I'm not really good at going to the gym. I would say,
well, Dave Tate says all the time, do the things you're bad at.
Right.
That's what's going to make you better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's, I can't draw for crap. I don't get a whole lot of value out of it. But if somebody said, yeah, doing art gives me tons of purpose and I enjoy this activity, it's like, I think we gravitate very heavily, especially in our youth, at only doing the things that we're good at, and I think that's fine. You have to be able to get reinforcement. You have to be told.
Well,
that
and I
you're
think
doing
that's
good.
how you make friends.
Right.
You want to be cool. Like, I'm going to do what I'm good at because it's going to impress people.
There's a long structure, especially with men, where I would say like that's a big factor of it. If you're good, if I had a seventh,
We've been in
grader,
dick measuring contests since elementary school.
exactly. If I have a seventh grader who's got bad social skills, but that dude can jack a home run, like he's going to have friends. It's going to be fine.
Oh, yeah.
But you get to a point where, probably around 30, you see people just running half marathons for no freaking reason or something like that. But I think it starts happening where maybe the requirement here is not that you're good at it. Maybe the idea is like, what are you actually going to draw some purpose from, and what are you going to actually find some meaning in? And we talk about, in lifting, there's failure and there's getting better and there's skill development. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be that you're good at something. I do think we should be able to praise people and funnel towards something and give them honest feedback and tell them, hey, that was shit. You did a
That was
bad
dog
job.
shit, yeah.
But
If you never fail, you never get better.
right. Yeah.
Well, I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I appreciate you guys coming on today.
Absolutely.
It's been fun. Oh, and can we do another plug for?
Yeah, go for it.
So Wes brought it up earlier. We do have a podcast, Do More Better, and so there will be. I would say it's like kind of the opposite of what we've done here. It's mostly psychology with a little bit of training brought in every now and then, just because we both train at something, But
Sure.
please check us out and keep listening to Bullets, Barbells, and Barbecue.
Yeah. If you guys like it, share it, follow us, set us for automatic downloads, give us 5 stars. If you don't like it, I don't really give a fuck. Just tell everybody about it anyway.
And shit your pants.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll see you later.